You're listening to the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan.
Hey there, folks. It's Kevin with episode number 156 of the Just Japan podcast. Everything you want to know about Japan. That's right. My name's Kevin. I'm a Canadian. I live in Japan, and I make a podcast each and every week about life in Japan. This week, it's a little bit different. Of course, from time to time, you guys know if you've been following me for a long time, I make mobile episodes. That's right, guys. Mobile episodes where I'm on the move, because I'm a man on the move. I'm a guy who's on the move. I'm doing things. I'm busy. I got lots to do. Well, actually, it's a scheduling thing. I honestly just can't get quiet time in my house to record the intro and outro bits of this week's podcast. So I'm combining two things that I like to do: walking at night and podcasting. That's right. Pretty much each and every night, I go for a walk. Once my kids are in bed, they're fast asleep, I go for a walk. It's just a way for me to relax and calm down. I listen to podcasts. I just go for a walk. And right now I'm walking along. I've got my microphone attached to my lapel. I've got my fur windscreen on it, and I'm recording episode 156. And we're talking about working in a temple in Japan. That's right. This week we're talking about the experience of Felicity Tillack from Where Next Japan, who spent 6 months working in a kitchen in a Buddhist temple in Japan. And this is a really cool episode. I'm really happy to have Felicity on. She contributed an audio piece to the Just Japan podcast in the early days of the podcast. And it's great to have her featured on this week's episode. Felicity is a friend of mine, a former colleague of mine, and she's doing some really cool stuff over at wherenextjapan.com. And she had a really cool experience working in a Japanese Buddhist temple for 6 months. Very cool, guys. You're going to like this one. Oh yeah, you're going to like it. So of course you can find the Just Japan podcast over at justjapanstuff.com. That's the home. That's the landing page of the podcast. Also over at justjapanstuff.com. There's a lot of cool Japan-related content, so go over there, check out the website. Also remember, the Just Japan podcast is a proud member of the Japan Podcast Network. That's right, the Japan Podcast Network. So go to japanpodcastnetwork.com and check out other great podcasts about Japan, such as the ALT Insider Podcast, Disrupting Japan, and the Two Player Select Podcast. That's right, guys. So check that out. The links will be in the show notes. Go there, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Now, of course, you can find the Just Japan podcast using all major podcatchers. Hey, heck it. Just heck it? Is that a thing? Do people say heck it? Well, I guess one person just said it now. Go to Google and just Google Just Japan podcast. We're on Stitcher. I'm going to be finishing up SoundCloud, guys. If you are someone who listens to the Just Japan podcast on SoundCloud, that will be ending very soon. It's an expensive service to maintain. I'm paying about 1,800 yen a month, and I don't get a lot of listeners. So that's going to be ending soon. So if you are someone who listens to this podcast on SoundCloud, go over to iTunes, find us on Stitcher Internet Radio. We're on Libsyn as well. Go search for Just Japan Podcast over there. Just a few weeks left on SoundCloud, and then it will be finito. So there you go. We're all over the place. There's a lot of places to find us, guys. A lot of places to find the Just Japan Podcast. All right, folks, so it is the end of April is here. That's right. I'm recording this portion of this week's podcast on the 29th of April, the second last day of the month. And it's an interesting time. The Golden Week holiday is here, guys. I'm on holiday for the next 9 days. That's paid holiday, guys. Believe me, I'm not complaining. And Golden Week actually, so the way it works is this year, it changes every year. So today is a national holiday. Today is Showa Day, I believe. It's Saturday the 29th. Tomorrow being Sunday is a holiday because it's Sunday, as in like a holiday for people who are public servants or, students. Monday and Tuesday are not public holidays for most people in Japan. Well, no, they're not public holidays, so people have to work. And kids go to school, who go to public schools. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are public holidays leading into the weekend. But my school just shuts down for the entire 9 days. So, hey, I'm not complaining, guys. So what's big news going on in my life? My little daughter, Rena, my awesome, cute, little, wonderful daughter, she's turning 4 years old. That's right, guys. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you'll be like, holy moly, 4 years old already. That's right. On May 1st, Rena's going to be 4. And we're having a Moana-themed birthday party because that's what she's requested. And my wife is going full tilt. She's making a big Moana-themed cake. A bunch of Rena's little tiny friends will be coming over to the house. My wife has made costumes for them. There's going to be Moana music in Japanese and English playing in the background. Lots of fun snacks. I'm making a piñata, a coconut piñata, and all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun. And that's going to be happening Monday afternoon, Japan time. That's right. 4-year-old birthday party happening at my house. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really cool. Can't wait. So one thing I do want to mention about this week's episode of the Just Japan podcast, where I interview Felicity Tillack from Where Next Japan. This episode, you'll be wondering, Kevin, like it's late. You almost missed, you basically had a month with only 3 episodes. Well, I got sick last week. I got a pretty nasty cold, and I was also hit with really severe hay fever, pollen allergies. And basically, I lost my voice. I had no voice at the beginning of the week, or last weekend, the beginning of the week, when I normally would record this week's episode. And it was really rough and spotty. Now, basically, when I get home at the end of the day, I don't talk. That's what's been happening this week to try to save my voice for my teaching voice. And when I'm teaching all week, I basically have a bottle of water fused to my hand because I'm constantly coughing and hacking. Well, you'll hear, especially in the first few minutes of the interview, I have like massive coughing fits. And I'm not going to try to edit it out because I don't have the time to do that. I just coughed a lot, like loud coughing and hacking. And I really want to apologize right off the bat before you get into the interview for that coughing and hacking I was doing. Luckily, Felicity was a really good sport about it. I know her. We're former colleagues. As we mentioned in the podcast, we had desks beside each other in our teacher's room. So, she was a good sport about it. And you'll notice as the interview progresses, the coughing seems to just kind of dissipate, thankfully. But yeah, so it was pretty rough for me. So, not the most professional quality interview, but I mean, good content. But on my part, sorry, I apologize. A lot of coughing. And on that note, let's listen to the interview. Folks out there in Just Japan podcast land, welcome to episode number 156. And we're going to be talking about temple stays in Japan. And this week, we've got kind of a second time guest. A long time ago, early in the annals of the podcast, she was a contributor. And this is the first time actually having her on for an interview. I'd like to welcome Felicity Tillack of Where Next Japan. Felicity,
Yay!
thank you for coming on. Yay!
No worries. Excited.
And I'm sorry for the coughing.
Nasty cough.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to be coughing throughout this podcast. I really do apologize. I have a cold and allergies. So I've actually, I've actually postponed the podcast for several days because of that. But hey, we got to do what we got to do. And I'm going to cough again.
You're an inspiration, Kevin. Keep it up, mate.
The coughing or the podcasting?
The podcasting, yeah. Love the coughing.
Yeah, I don't like the coughing part so much. Okay, so Felicity, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on for the first time in an actual interview setting. So can you tell the Just Japan podcast listeners a little bit about yourself and your kind of Japan story. What brought you to Japan, and where are you from and all that stuff?
All right. Well, I'm an Australian and I've been in Japan for 10 years. I came over pretty much almost as soon as I graduated as an English conversation teacher, as most people do.
Okay.
And the reason I came over uh, was because I had so many Japanese teachers all the way through school, primary school and in high school, who painted this picture of this place that was so different from Australia. Um, Culturally different, and just the way of thinking was different. And it just, something that was the opposite of Australia when I was 21 was exactly what I wanted. So yeah, I got an English teaching job. I came over and I've been bopping around Japan for the last 10 years. I've been in 4 different prefectures.
Okay, wow.
And I'll be in my 5th prefecture from September. Yeah, I've had an exciting time. So that's kind of the name of the blog, Where Next Japan, comes from the fact that every couple of years it feels like I'm in like a new spot,
Wow.
a new place to explore.
Cool. And folks that they're listening, I actually know Felicity because she is a former colleague of mine. We worked together at the same international school, and actually, I was teaching grade 2, you were teaching grade 1, and we had desks
Yep.
beside each other.
We did, yep.
Yeah.
So we got to chat about travel and all kinds of like fun things because, yeah, Kevin, you've got quite an interest in photography as well. So yeah, could swap like tips, and I miss those days.
Yeah. Felicity is quite the photographer, folks. So, and when you do go over to wherenextjapan.com, you will see that she's a writer, a photographer, and a videographer. So, I will promote her site throughout the episode, and there will be, of course, links in the show notes at justjapanstuff.com. Okay, well, Felicity's on here tonight because she is wrapping up a very kind of amazing thing. You are actually the first person I know personally who's done this in Japan. And I know other people have done this, but you're the first person that I know. But you're wrapping up a big temple stay. I guess you'll tell us more about it at a place called Koyasan here in Japan.
Yes, yeah, I've been living in Koyasan for the past 7 months, and Koyasan's this very unique place, not only in Japan, but I feel like it's unique in the world. It's a Buddhist enclave on a mountaintop, and it's over 1,000 years old, 1,200 years old, and it's a town that's basically just devoted to temples and the study of Buddhism and the keeping of knowledge of the particular Buddhist sect, Shingon sect.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's a place. It's the place that culminates a pilgrimage for most people. They do the 88 temples in Shikoku, and then this is kind of the final stop. They go to the end. There's this giant graveyard in Koyasan.
Okay.
And it's called the Okunoyen, and it's one of the most special parts of the complex. And it's this long, 1 kilometer long, meandering stone path through a cedar forest, and the trees are just massive because some of them are 400, 600 years old, and some of them are registered as important cultural properties, so you can't chop them down. They've got their own little name tags and everything.
Okay, wow.
And at the very end of this path is the Okunoin itself, which is the inner temple where Kobayashi, who founded this place, is said to live in eternal meditation. So a lot of people come here, and when they come here at the end of their pilgrimage, they need to stay somewhere. So they stay in one of the 52 temples that kind of conglomerate on this mountain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Koyasan is a mountain essentially covered in temples, Buddhist temples. And you mentioned it's a community as well of people who go to study Buddhism and experience and travel and all of this.
Yeah, it has a university.
Oh, really?
And
wow.
Anybody can go to this university. Yeah, it's not just for monks.
Okay.
A lot of people who I've met, like who just wanted to study outside a city, have come here because they just like Koyasan. They're not particularly interested in becoming a monk or following a religious path, but they just like being here. So yeah, there's a full-on university. There's a school just for the monks. So when you become a monk, you spend 1 year in this school. So yeah, it's a center of learning. It's a center of of a very important religious sect in Japan. So yeah, it definitely gives that kind of special kind of atmosphere to the place.
Okay, now, do a lot of foreigners visit Koyasan?
Oh yes, yep. Actually, in the past 2 years, especially, numbers of foreign tourists have skyrocketed,
Oh, really?
and that's partly to do with the prefecture itself. Wakayama is really, really pushing Koyasan. It's spent a lot of time and effort getting PR out there, and it's really
Okay.
worked. And it's also because the 1,200th year anniversary was very recently, so
Oh,
it got a
wow.
lot of kind of natural um, promotion from that, and it became a World Heritage Site a few years back. The whole Kumanokoto hiking trail and Koyasan became World Heritage. So all these things together, it's just an explosion. The temple that I'm in has maybe on a normal day, probably 60 to 70% of the people staying here are foreigners,
Oh, really? Oh,
and
wow.
that's true in other places. Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. So okay, um, can you tell me a little bit about? Now, I sadly yet I've not been to Koyasan, and I know over the years everyone's like, Kevin, you gotta go, and I'm like, yeah, I will, and then it just
Yep.
seems like family always has me so busy that
Yeah.
I can't do anything. I'm lucky if
hmm
I can get it to Kobe. Um, so can you set the scene a little bit? Like what is it a rugged place? Is it just kind of like walking through forests with temples here and there? Is there like a bit of a village or a town? What does it kind of look like for those who've never been there and they want to picture it in their mind?
It's a little village. It's about 4 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. And it starts off at Daimon, which is the big gate. And it's this big, red, very impressive structure at the mouth of the town. So
Okay.
you walk through this gate, the Daimon, and you come down, and there's yeah, the village starts pretty quickly after the gate. There's these little shops, some of them that sell like very traditional Japanese sweets, like yakimochi, which is kind of a fried uh, sticky bean, sticky rice kind of like sweet.
Hmm.
And these little traditional kind of shops and omiyage shops, souvenir shops that go all the way down.
Okay. Now I'm curious. Um, Roughly, how many visitors a year do you have any idea, like a rough number? How many visitors a year come to Koyasan?
Oh, I don't have those numbers, but it would be thousands.
Hundreds of
I mean,
thousands, probably, right?
it feels a little bit like especially in peak seasons like spring, autumn, those seasons you just get tons and tons of tourists. You get buses of tourists. But it's not always hustle and bustle. Like it still has quiet days generally on the weekdays.
Okay,
Uh, Generally in if you come in January or February, nobody's here.
because it's
But
cold
also
and
a lot of the
snowy.
shops. It's very cold, and actually this year we had some of the highest snow in 50 years.
Oh, really? Wow. And here I am down in Kobe, where there's no such thing as snow. Or well, we've heard a rumor of it. But yeah, okay. So, you did a temple stay, and
Mhm.
you were there for 7 months. Wow.
Yep.
What got you when did this idea pop into your brain that, hey, I'd like to stay at a temple, or I'd like to stay at Koyasan more than just a quick visit?
Probably from the very beginning. I came almost 10 years ago now for the first time and was just blown away by this, it felt 10 years ago like this little secret hidden away hamlet that nobody knew about. So I think at that point I fell in love with it. And I've come to Koyasan pretty much every year since then. I've stayed over in temples, in this temple, Ekoen, and in another temple, Fukuchien, which has an onsen,
Okay.
um, overnight. And yeah, I think those experiences made me want to be here longer, to wake up in the morning and see it like from dawn till dusk and one day after the other, and that was just it was a dream. It really cemented within me. And I came here once, a couple of years back, and I was talking to the monk, and he was from Tokyo, and
Hmm.
he'd just come come to Tokyo to refresh, to Koyasan just to refresh himself and to kind of start his life again. And I was like, oh, you can do that. There's jobs in the temple. So yeah, when I finished working at the international school last year, I looked it up, and the temple was hiring, and I applied, and they accepted me.
Okay, wow. So you've been at Koyasan at the temple for 7 months, and
Yep.
you're finishing up now your stay
Yep.
there. What the heck did you do at a temple for 7 months?
Well, I was working. I was a full-time kitchen staff.
Okay.
So I was, yeah, I'd get up at 5:30 every morning and start work at 6:20 and go straight into breakfast trays. We have to put all the food on the trays. And in the temples, it's vegetarian. So we'd have little bowls of like mountain vegetables and little bowls of hijiki, which is a kind of seaweed,
Mm-hmm.
and lots of daizu, which is soybean.
Mm-hmm.
And we put all of that into the plates and put them on the trays. And then at 7-ish, the monks would come, pick up the trays, take them to the guests who were generally sleeping and not really interested in breakfast yet, but it's a temple, you have to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd all come back, we clean it, we clean the toilets around 11 a.m. And then in the afternoon, we get ready for the dinner. And then the grand finale, where everybody, including the monks and the girls in the kitchen, come together and we clean up everything really quickly at about 7 o'clock at night. And we're done by about 7:30.
Mm.
Every single day, it doesn't change. I can tell you exactly what I'd be doing at 2:05 every day because it doesn't change.
What would you be doing at 2:05?
At 2:05, I would be setting the little tiny plates with takuan, which is a kind of daikon, Japanese radish,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of shibazuke, which is a purple kind of pickle. Again, I think that might be Japanese radish, but I'm not sure, pickled in a slightly different way. So yeah, I'd be just doing 50 of them.
Hmm. So I noticed you mentioned breakfast and dinner. Was there lunch?
There's lunch for people who like order it separately. There's something called chujiki, where people come, generally Japanese guests come for a service,
Okay.
because of course Buddhist temples are there to keep the remains of loved ones, or to keep something of loved ones, and they pray to them every day. So then sometimes family members will come for a ceremony, and they'll generally have a lunch with that ceremony.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's
Wow.
separate.
Wow. So, well, you're there for 7 months doing this, and 7 days a week.
Yeah,
Um,
pretty much. But actually, like when we're working at an international school, 5 days a week is pretty tough. But generally, you get to Friday and you're ready to finish, but you're not absolutely bone dead exhausted.
yeah.
Here, by day 3, I'd be bone dead exhausted.
Oh, really?
So, and that's not just me; it's everybody. So generally, we'd take one day off every 4 days, if possible.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. That just kind of um like just nonstop work, 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 work,
Yep.
work.
Yep.
Wow.
So
My.
busy. And the thing is that it would 10 guests, more or less, would just completely change your day. If you had 50 guests, that's a good day. But 60 is starting to get intense. And then people cancel at the last minute. And the thing is, the temples don't actually charge you if you cancel. So if you're listening and you're thinking about doing a temple stay at Koyasan and then you change your mind, call as soon as possible, because it really does change the lives of the people in the kitchen, even like 2 or 3 people less to prepare for, because it's such a waste of food and time. And yeah,
Yeah. Ah. Is
be
that pretty is
considerate.
that pretty frequent for people just to be no shows?
Yes, sometimes as many as 6 or 7 people a day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hmm.
So there's no charge to stay there? Is that what you're
There
saying?
is. Yes, it's actually very expensive to stay in Koyasan.
Oh, okay, okay.
Um, the temples, but they don't charge if you cancel.
Oh,
But an
okay, okay.
overnight will be, depending on the temple, between cheaper ones will be 8,000 yen a night per person, including food.
Okay.
And then I think Ekoen starts at 1 ichiman 2,000 yen for one night. And then if you depends on the course you get. If you have the cheapest course, it's 1,000. It's Ichiman Nisayen. But then the most expensive course is almost Nimayen.
Okay,
So
so you're
20,000.
talking roughly $200 American or more for that expensive one, maybe 120 American dollars for that kind of lower end
Yep, yep.
for a night.
For one night, one per person.
Wow, okay. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
cheap.
No. So
Wow.
usually people only can afford to stay one night.
Okay.
Occasionally we'll get people for two or three. Three is very rare.
Okay. Wow. So on your wherenextjapan.com blog, you made some posts about your stay there, and I'm just
Yeah.
curious. I sadly I didn't have a lot of time to I kind of skimmed through and read a bit
Yeah.
here and there. But you talk about your experiences there. There was one
Hmm.
post about being in the kitchen, and hey, I guess you're on your way out when this is posted. You won't be there anymore. But
Yep.
maybe some of the cooks
Yep.
who were there were, and I've worked in kitchens before, a long time ago back in
Oh.
Canada. Back
Uh-huh.
in my early 20s, I had some experience working in kitchens,
Yep.
and I've been screamed at royally
Uh,
by a few cooks.
yep.
I was a server, and
They're a
I
cranky bunch.
incredibly cranky. I can remember one time
Yeah.
walking into a kitchen on in a resort where I was doing a theater show, a dinner theater show. So in a dinner
Uh-huh.
theater show, you're a performer. I sang, I played drums, I did acting, but I
Oh
also
well.
served. And I went there on a day off, and I walked into the kitchen to ask someone a question about my pay. And I remember the chef, walked up to me and very calmly said, he said, "Oh, are you working today?" I'm like, "No, I'm not working today." He's like, "Oh, okay, so you're not working today and you're here in the kitchen." I was like, yeah, I just need to ask a question. He said, and then I just remember he's like, "You're not working today, so get the F and F out of my kitchen." And like,
Wow.
and I was like, ah, basically turned and ran away.
Yeah, I've never really met a cheerful chef. I'm sure that they exist, but yeah, the ones here as well. They're, I think I've described them in the blog as like big toddlers, and they have a very short fuse.
Mm,
They have a very short fuse. But what I was most worried about when I came here was that because I'm a foreigner and I can speak Japanese pretty well, but there's always going to be things that, you just don't pick up or just don't understand.
yeah,
But they were always very kind in that respect. If they would say something to me, it'd be just like blah in my ears, and they'd just go, "Oh, you don't understand, right?" And I'd just be like, "No, I don't." And they're like, "Don't worry about it." Or they'd say it again. That was never what flicked their switch. They never were like, "Oh my God, you idiot! Can't you understand Japanese? Go back to where you came from." Never happened. So that I
well, that's
have a lot of
good.
gratitude, yeah,
Yeah,
for that. But things like if you miscounted the plates were just, oh yeah, you'd get fingers pointed at you and can't you count? And yeah, one guy, one night he dropped the fruit and it was for staff, and I think we'd been joking around before that, and I was just like, well, that's yours now. And that was it. That was it. He just threw down the fruit and stormed out, and he's like, I'm not eating with you guys now. And just like such a short fuse. You're like,
mm.
yeah.
I think maybe it sounds like maybe similar kitchen experiences that people out there who've worked in kitchens throughout the world have experienced. I mean, again, my time working in doing the theater over the course of a year and a half in Canada, working at different resorts, I remember getting yelled at for mixing up drink orders and getting
Hmm.
yelled at for miscounting meals, serving the wrong meal.
Hmm.
Yeah, some stuff salmon, but I give them chicken because I wrote down chicken instead of salmon. Blah blah blah, and then I get it in the kitchen from the kitchen staff, and then I get it from the customers. Just
Hmm.
not a very fun situation to be in. Um, but uh, but yeah, so now you put one post on your blog on Where Next Japan about being on rice duty.
Yes. Oh, the
So
first
so
week
tell me
was
about your first week.
it
You as a noob, as a temple stay noob in the kitchen there, or a temple employee, I suppose, and having to deal with
well,
rice. What was up, Zach?
Well, it also didn't help that I seem to have been caught up in a bit of like senpai rivalry because my main senpai had planned to start me after a month and a bit because you don't start rice right away. Rice is the most important job in the kitchen. You can't
Oh, really?
muck up the rice. No. And I'd been there just over a month, and my senpai was like, all right, Freddie, I think you're almost ready. Next week we'll put you on rice. And then she went away for a couple of days, and the other senpai was like, "That's it, today you're gonna start rice." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, right." And yeah, she had that senpai. I do like her a lot, but she's very vague sometimes. She'll be
Okay.
like, "Yeah, just like put in your power and just like wash it like this, and you'll find your own way of doing it, and it'll be great." She's very positive but vague.
But very
So,
vague.
so
Sometimes you need clear instructions, huh?
oh yes, especially when it's a second language, and yeah, when you've never made rice on kind of an industrial scale before, like
Yeah,
for like
yeah.
80 people.
Oh God, I can't even
Um,
imagine that would blow my mind. I mean, I make rice, but I've only ever made rice for a family of four.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just and there's a stack of papers, and the papers have the numbers of the customers and how much rice generally you would put for that. And there's the smaller amount, and then there's if you think that they're going to be hungry, the larger amount. And there's all these like there's a special counting system just for rice. So the first day there was all this information just flooding into my mind. And she was asking me, "What do you think? How much do you think? What do you reckon?" And I'm just like, I have no idea. You tell me how much rice we should be making today.
I read it.
And
I read in your blog how you wrote something where they said, okay, well now foreigners. There's a lot of foreigners, and the foreigners
yep,
usually they eat less rice than the
oh yeah,
Japanese people, so they get a
yep,
smaller serving than Japanese people want more.
yep. So
Mm.
many factors that you have to take into account. Yeah, you look at the board and oh yeah, it's about, 50 today, so we'll do, less rice. Oh, today there's more Japanese, so we'll do more rice. It's a big group today, so we have to make sure that there's enough for okawari, which is like seconds.
Mm.
It's just so many different factors. And your first day, we were short staffed that day as well. So I was putting the rice into the rice, like hitsu, the rice containers, which go out to the individual customers.
Mm.
And all the boys came in to take out the stuff, and I hadn't finished yet. I hadn't put all the rice in the rice containers yet. And my senpai, who had said that she was going to be there next to me, couldn't be because she had to go out and like make sure the tea was on the trays and the soup was on the trays, and she had to do all the other jobs while I was meant to be doing the rice. And I dropped the rice, and rice goes everywhere, and it's sticky, and you just get covered in it. And it was really intense that first day. And my boss's wife came in because suddenly I was doing the most important job in the kitchen. She started taking notice, and she was like, "Oh, the way that you put the rice in the bowl was like a kind of a smooth mountain, which is the way I'd been told to do it. Make it kind of like nice and round, like the top, like a snow-covered mountain." And
Okay.
she's like, "No, that's too artificial. It doesn't make the customers feel like it's natural, like fluffy rice. It's too artificial." And so she got quite upset with me, and I was just like, "Oh, I don't know."
Oh
So
man.
yeah, that was it was quite an intense couple of days, and I was just like, "I hate it. I hate rice. Not interested. Don't want to do this anymore. Let me go back and put the Japanese radish on the little plates. I don't want to do this."
Mm.
But I got the hang of it, and actually it became one of my preferred jobs. And this week, before I left, they let me do it twice. We have full-time. We have what's it called? A rotation.
Okay.
So yeah, we generally do it for a couple of days in a row, and then it's the next person's couple of days in a row. So I got to do it, which was really good. Yeah, I like it now. At
Well,
first, it was hard.
now that you've had some experience, yeah. Now, how many people are working in a kitchen like that in general?
We have 4 or 5 or 6 girls, depending on the season, depending on the day.
Okay.
Um,
one of the girls, she works in a little restaurant across the road mainly, but then she'll stop in and help sometimes.
Okay.
And in winter, one of the girls went back home for a couple of months. But now now I'm leaving. There's 5 girls.
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
And a few cooks.
And the 2 cooks.
2 cooks. Okay.
Yep. And they would like an extra cook, but Ikowen's quite unusual, I think. Other temples have less people. Other temples have monks doing a lot of kitchen work. Every place is different.
Hmm. Now, okay, I'm curious. When it comes to um, doing something like this, working in a temple. I mean, okay, so I mean, I sent you some talking points, some questions, and I asked for like one thing was like, what is some advice you would have for visitors or people who want to do a temple stay? But actually, now I'm thinking for people out there who are interested in Japan, who may be in Japan now,
Yep.
or are planning on coming here, who might like to spend some time working in a temple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it easy to find this kind of gig? This doesn't seem like something that would be posted on Gaijin Pot.
No, I found it via a Japanese website called
Okay.
sumikomi.com, which is for working and living in the place that you work.
Okay.
Uh, and that's unusual. Like even though it was in Japanese, the actual act of posting a job online for temples is unusual. Most of the temples here are word of mouth
Okay.
and quite elderly people, quite old ladies generally work here for like 30, 40 years. So this temple is quite a young-minded temple. It's a very progressive temple. It's got a young couple who have a lot of say. Their parents, if you
Hello?
want to do this kind of job, what what would I suggest? I don't know. I mean, at probably at one method that might work is if you were at a temple and then you asked them if they
Just
did
ask them, hey.
volunteering. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of reminds me of like there's a TV show there called Why Did You Come to Japan? That's
Uh-huh.
on Mondays on Channel 7, I think. And they basically follow foreigners around Japan and what they do and stuff. And often you see things that are literally like that. A lot of they hang out at the airports and they just like
Uh-huh.
stop foreigners and they ask them, "Where are you from? Why did you come to Japan?" Blah, blah, blah. And then they ask them their stories and they'll be like, "Can we come with you?" And usually they're like, "No," but sometimes they say yes, and there's like
Uh-huh.
often these like really fascinating stories that kind of
Yeah.
come from it, and often
Mm-hmm.
it'll be like someone's like, I really love farming and I want to learn about farming in Japan, and they'll just
Yeah.
like go to some rural area, just like walk up to farmers and be like, hey,
Oh, wow.
can I like help you? And like they sometimes they'll be like these people like sure, or they'll have
Uh,
like, and I know there's things called for example when it comes to organic farming and stuff, there's like romping, and I think that's one organization like where you can go and work on organic farms,
oh, yeah.
basically volunteer your time to do it, but
Mm-mm.
I guess yeah, maybe just being somewhere and just taking up the courage and asking. I guess the worst that people can say is no.
Yeah, definitely. And because there's such a huge influx of foreign tourists, somebody who can speak English or French or Spanish would be somebody of use. But on the opposite, on the flip side, it probably would help if you had some Japanese or some understanding of Japanese culture
That's
because we
that's I
have,
was gonna ask that question next. Would it
yeah,
be good for people to have Japanese skills? Mm.
yeah, I think so. We had a guy and he did really well here actually. He came and he'd never been in Japan before. He didn't speak any Japanese. And he was in Japan for 6 days when he started working at Koyasan. And his own natural kind of like strong work ethic and his own like natural cheerfulness definitely helped him. But I remember about 4 days after he had arrived, my female coworkers surrounded me and they were like, Fetty, Jack hasn't done aisatsu yet. And aisatsu is like a greeting. And he hasn't done this greeting to the owners of the temple. And I was just like, okay. And yes. and they were like, he hasn't gone up and said yoroshiku onegaishimasu to them yet, and it's causing a big problem because they're waiting for that, and he hasn't done it, and it's a big problem. You have to tell him. So I sat down and I was like, all right, you guys tell me exactly what steps we need to take. I'll write it down. I'll go tell him. So that's what we did. He had to go and say yoroshiku onegaishimasu, jaku desu, to the owners of the temple, and then every time he met somebody, he had to go up to them and say hajimemashite, jaku desu, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. And to his incredible credit, like, he was just like, oh yeah, yep, no worries, let's go do that. And he did it like every single time he met a new person. He went straight up to them, did that. I was so proud of him. He was awesome.
Okay, so
But
he had a super gregarious, positive person, right?
he was a
Nice.
very chill guy and open-minded. So I think you have to be that. You have to be a hard worker. You have to be open-minded, and having some Japanese language skills, because a lot of people up here just still don't speak English very much.
Hmm. And I think kind of like what you mentioned there about that open-mindedness. I mean, you've been in Japan for 10 years. I've been in Japan for
Mm-hmm.
almost 10 years now, about 9. And I've been living in Asia since 2002, actually, Korea included. And I think that if you're not a very open-minded person, you're gonna have a rough time. I think I think that goes for living in any culture, like foreign culture, a culture that is not your own. If you're not open-minded, it's gonna be rough.
I think that you can't bring your own cultural baggage onto somebody else's cultural like practice too much. You can't come
Hmm.
in with your judgments and say, oh well, this is not what we do, or I don't agree with this, because you might not understand the cultural background to it.
Hmm.
you know I think that is a big part of it. You have to be just open-minded, just ready to learn rather than judge.
Yeah, I guess you need to be inquisitive
Mm-hmm.
instead of saying, why do they do this? Blah blah blah. It's like, well, why do they do this? And
Exactly, yeah, actually,
let's
yeah.
actually find out why this happens. And there's usually a very good reason why
Mm-hmm.
something happens.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, Felicity, I'm curious. Tell us about Where Next Japan.
All right, so Where Next Japan is a blog that I started about 6 years ago now, and it's generally a travel related blog, but I also delve into aspects of culture and questions that I think might be interesting to not only travelers in Japan, but people who live here long term. I recently made a video on becoming citizens in Japan, which probably is only going to be interesting to a niche group of people. But the thing is, with Where Next Japan, it's a vehicle for me to explore people's stories,
Okay.
which I find really interesting. I love hearing about people's reasons for what they do. I've interviewed all of the monks here in the temple, why they
Okay.
became monks, and there's just such a variety of reasons. So for me, having this blog has meant that I can actually go up to people and engage with them on a deeper level than I would be able to if we were just seeing each other like every day saying hello. I can actually go up and say, hey, can I like ask you all these like deep questions about yourself?
Yeah.
Um, and people are surprisingly willing to do it, which I always appreciate. So yeah, Where Next Japan is a collection of interviews, photos, videos, insights into Japan, hopefully.
Great. And now, you also, of course, have the YouTube channel,
Yes.
the Where Next Japan YouTube channel with videos about Japan and Japanese culture and whatnot. You guys out there, go to wherenextjapan.com. Go like it. Check it out.
Please.
Um,
Yes, that would be awesome.
Links will be in the show notes at justjapanstuff.com. Felicity, don't want to keep you any longer. It's getting late into the night. Well, not that late, but nonetheless. Um, hey,
We both have tomorrow.
I'm an elementary school teacher. It's 10 o'clock. It's late for me.
School night.
The school night. One more and then Golden Week vacation. Yay! Um, so where can people find you on social media?
So I'm on Twitter, but I'm more active on Instagram.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook, YouTube, of course, and my blog.
So on Instagram, do they just search for Where Next Japan?
Yep.
Where Next Japan on
Where Next
Instagram?
Japan across the board. Twitter, Insta, everything.
Nice. Cool. Well, folks, I will put all those links in the show notes at justjapanstuff.com under episode 156 of the podcast. Felicity, thanks for coming on tonight.
No, thanks for having me, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Yay. Awesome. Cool.
All right. See you guys later.
The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is... Please note, the new number is...
All right, folks. Well, that does it for the interview portion. I want to thank Felicity so much for taking the time out of her busy schedule for sitting down to chat with me on her last night at Koyasan, Koya Mountain, at that Buddhist temple. Her last night after 6 months of working in the kitchen there, to chat with us and share with us her amazing experience. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, of course, you can check out all of the cool things that Felicity is doing over at wherenextjapan.com. Of course, all those show notes will be, I should say all those links. Oh my God, I'm really getting messed up, guys. All those links will be, well, that one link, I guess not all those links. That one link will be in the show notes at justjapanstuff.com. All right, folks, well, this week's episode is late. It's a bit mixed up, done in a different way, a bit patchwork, some coughing involved. I apologize for that, but I got it out. I did it. I got 4 episodes out this month. It was rough, but I did it. Sometimes life schedules, health conditions, family health conditions, all that stuff, work schedules get in the way, and they make it difficult to produce content on the kind of regular basis that you hope to get it out there. But nonetheless, it was out there. So great experience today. On this Saturday, the 29th of April, I went to a live writers reading in Sannomiya here in Kobe, Japan. I was invited by a friend of the show, Josh Yates. Josh, thank you so much for the invite. Went to this cool thing at Bar Isn't, a group of writers from around Japan, English-speaking foreign writers who were doing readings from books they've written, and it was a neat experience. Sadly, I could only hang out there for about an hour because of other engagements. So it was a really cool experience, and I made a few contacts, and hopefully I can get a few of the writers who I met today on the podcast at some point in the future. Now, of course, you can find the podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, on SoundCloud for a limited time only. Again, if you are a SoundCloud person, please migrate over and start listening on iTunes or on Stitcher or on Libsyn. For those of you folks out there who are saying, hey, Kevin, there's 156 episodes, but only 99 are on iTunes, go to Libsyn, okay, libsyn.com. Actually, there's a link in the show notes where you can listen to all 156 episodes because they're all there in the Libsyn database, okay? So go check that out over at justjapanstuff.com. You can always find me on social media, of course, on Twitter at jlandkev, on Instagram at jlandkev, JLANDKEV, same for both. Facebook, of course, at Just Japan Stuff. I got a new Facebook page, guys, happening. You'll know if you follow me. I'm an avid nature photographer, and I'm stepping it up a few notches. Might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I think you'll appreciate the beauty of a lot of my photos, my pictures. But, you guys will know that I am a nature lover. I am a nature educator. One of my passions in life is teaching children about nature and connecting children to nature and trying to create, a future generation or a new generation of environmental stewards, children who will grow up to be people who will take care of nature. And I do that in small ways. But one of the ways I do it is by connecting children with insects and teaching them about insects and the importance of insects in our environment and our, with regards to food security, the importance of pollinators, bees, bumblebees, butterflies when it comes to food security. Hey guys, like one third of all of our food, bees are responsible for that, guys. So we got to take care of the world. We got to take care of nature. We got to fight climate change, all that jazz. And I'm doing my part by teaching every day. I teach this stuff to my homeroom classes my home class and other classes in my school, I'm often asked to do presentations to other classes and other grade levels about the importance of things like pollinators and insects in the environment and in the food chain and all of that jazz. I love it. It's my passion. But I've got a new Facebook page called Bugs of Asia. Bugs of Asia. Yay! I live in Asia. I'm in Japan, and you guys know that in a few months from now, I'm going to be making a move to China. Of course, the Just Japan podcast will continue, business as usual. But I want to expand. I want to just continue covering the topic that I cover, bugs. So lots of cool pictures of everything from butterflies to hornets, information about them, and all that stuff. Go to facebook.com/bugsofasia. Go like the page, Bugs of Asia. Like the page. My new thing. And I think I'm getting better at the photography thing. I think it's working out. I love nature photography. It's an awesome hobby to have. That will be in the show notes, of course. Yeah. What else? Yeah, so there's it. Go check out Where Next Japan, Felicity Tillack. She's cool people. She makes great content. She's got a great YouTube channel. She does some fun videos. Great blog. She's an incredible photographer. Oh my gosh. She's got the skills to pay the bills. Yeah, so there you go, guys. That is it for episode number 156 of the Just Japan podcast. My name is Kevin O'Shea. Oh, I forgot to mention, you can email me at justjapanpodcast@gmail.com. And email me anytime. Contact me anytime. That's it for this week's episode. Wherever you are in the world, my fine, fabulous folks who downloaded this episode, hope you're happy, hope you're healthy. I'll be talking to you real soon.